Another edition of Riding Home. Dean Leggy, Ryan Curley, getting ready for this primetime matchup between the Dogs and Rebs. We don't know what's going to happen with Jamon Dumas Johnson for the rest of the season. We know he's not going to be there this week. We don't know what the crowd's going to be like. Kirby Smart wants it better than it was this past Saturday, and honestly, was not that great from my
Ooh.
perspective. It wasn't. And that was one thing that. Well, go ahead. We can talk about this. That's one thing that Kirby was really saying. Hey, listen, we need it like it was last year against the Vols. He's right.
Yeah, he is right. And I think it will be closer to that than it was to last week. Part of it will be the night kick. People
Yeah.
are going to get up for that. The fact that college game day is going to be in town just makes people think it's even bigger than it is. But it does make it bigger than it actually is because it brings in national people. It's an extra bit of festivities. A top 10 team and a team that they don't play that often. That's a big brand in the SEC and a team that just doesn't come around that often. So I think it will be. I'm going to lean. I just don't think it'll be tough to beat the Tennessee crowd last year, but I think it could be close to that.
So a couple of things as we travel down memory lane here. Ole Miss and Georgia played every year from like the early 1960s until 2004, somewhere in there, 2003, 2004. And then that stopped because they wanted to rotate more teams and all this. When Missouri and them came in, Georgia and Ole Miss hardly ever played it from that point forward. But they did play forever. I don't think it was a rivalry necessarily, but Ole Miss certainly in the 80s and the 90s had their fair share of wins. This is a different Rebel team, obviously, from that time. You're going to try to run it and throw it and score points and all that. I mean, Lane Kiffin is the elephant in the room, if you want to call it that. Him and Kirby worked together. That was really probably Nick's best staff, was when Kirby was their defensive coordinator and Lane was their offensive coordinator. I mean, Lane Kiffin is an unbelievable offensive coordinator. He is very good at calling plays and so forth. This season is going to be important for Lane, Ryan, in terms of where does his college football head coaching legacy go? And I was about to say tonight, but tonight at the Omni, Saturday, Sunday. The game on Saturday with the Dogs in Sanford Stadium is going to be a really important moment for Lane and Kirby.
Yeah, it is, and this is. It feels like that Lane doesn't have that signature win yet at Ole Miss, and it could be Saturday night. That would definitely be the signature win if that happened for Ole Miss on Saturday night. But they're in as good a position this season as they've been since he's been there. Top at this point in the season, you're 9 games into it, top 10. SEC championship game is still on the line at this point in time. So I think this is big for Lane. I don't think he's on the hot seat or
No,
close to it really.
no, he just
So
signed it. He just signed
yeah,
a new
so
deal.
I think this has been a positive year for him. That would put it over the top. A win over Georgia would put the happiness level over the top over there. I don't think that's going to happen, but um, he's put them in good position. I always kind of think about what's next for Lane, or is it just carving out a spot over there?
That's a really good question. That was a good question a season ago. That's for sure. You're taking a
Yeah.
look at one of the newer EcoPoly models that we've got. Listen, red, black. This is just like the chair I've been using, but I want to make sure that everyone can see they can do two tone. Our friends at EcoPoly are getting it done. This is a great gift. Okay, these are great Christmas gifts. Okay, again, 20-year warranty on all of these. Someone saw this for the first time the other day. They had a comment about how nice it was, how heavy and so forth it is, and it's a very nice piece of furniture. The link is down below. 15% off, Ryan. Free shipping is probably a very important part of it. They can do the color that Ryan has on him right now, that blue. They can do this green. I'll show you all more about that as time goes on here. Last week was really the monumental moment. I mean, Georgia had to win that game against Missouri, and they did. Now, do you want to talk about that for a second? Because, this game
Yeah.
is not do or die for Georgia. I will
Yeah.
say, though, it's really important.
Yeah. It is. Every game is really important in college football, but
Now, in
now,
November, for
especially once
sure.
you get
Yeah.
to November, it was a little frustrating to me that I just thought that people didn't recognize what was actually going on and the fact that
No.
that Missouri game was vital. That winning that game was so important because then Georgia would not have controlled its own destiny after losing.
Oh, no,
You'd
they
be rooting
did.
for another Missouri loss. could still lose this game and make it to the SEC championship, right? That would be a possible scenario if Georgia loses this game. And
Well, the
as much
other
as
thing,
game
Ryan.
day is going to be here, Ole Miss is a bigger brand than Missouri. They're ranked higher than Missouri was when they got here. I actually think Missouri might be a little bit better of a team.
I do too.
We'll get into that a little bit, but this game doesn't have as much riding on it as a couple days ago did.
So I think Missouri might be better as well, but you know, I don't know if we're allowed to say that out loud. I
Are we not allowed to?
um, yeah, I mean, I think the
Well, why
way
do you
Missouri
think Missouri's
played.
better?
Say that again.
Why do you think Missouri's better?
Well, on Saturday, Missouri was better than Ole Miss. Now that was just
Yes.
Saturday. So there's been plenty of moments where Ole Miss has been better than Missouri, but on Saturday, you know, one thing that's, you know, I don't know what time that Missouri Tennessee game is, but if Missouri wins that game, I believe no, they can't. Georgia can't wrap it up at that point. Yeah, they would, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it's a 3:30 game. I'm not sure why CBS picked that game. That is strange to me. There's always horse trading.
Yeah.
There's always horse trading between ESPN and CBS. I'm not sure why CBS took Tennessee, Missouri. That's a very odd.
Is it just dog fatigue?
Well, I started thinking about that. I was like, you know, do they really want to do Georgia 4 weeks in a row? Usually they do, but like you know, Georgia Tennessee was going to be CBS no matter what.
Yeah.
They couldn't ignore Georgia Missouri. I just am surprised that they let that go. But that said, Ryan, you know, if Missouri beats Tennessee, they've got 2 losses in the league. Tennessee already has 2. If Missouri beats Tennessee, Georgia will be SEC East champions before they even take the field against Ole Miss, if my math is right. So, you know, Georgia's got to win 2 of their next 3 games if what I just said is true, to be in a terminal game with Alabama, probably, in Atlanta for the SEC championship and, you know, the right to go to the playoff. It will be this is as difficult a run as Georgia's had to complete in a regular season in a while. I will say, though, in 21, Ryan, I mean, they went, I think it was home Arkansas, away Kentucky.
Away to Auburn.
I'm sorry, home Arkansas, away Auburn, home Kentucky, all ranked in the top 15. Auburn might have been 18, but that was a challenging time. They survived it, and sometimes they really played well against Arkansas. They played fine against Auburn.
They played well against Arkansas.
What's that? Say it again.
They crushed Arkansas.
Okay, they crushed Arkansas, and then they played fine against Auburn, got it done in the second half, and then against Kentucky was very similar to the Missouri game this past week or the South Carolina game in 2017. Sometimes you're just not going to go out there, roll the ball out, and win. I mean, like you got to grind it out.
Yeah, especially when they're playing it's not like they're playing bad teams. These are good football teams. That's the other part of it. You're not just going to crush good football teams every week. Very, very, very elite college football teams do, but we don't see that super often.
Well, so that begs the question. What you just said makes me think: are there elite teams this year?
I don't know. And I think the reason why we're hyper focused on it is because we've seen a lot of elite teams in the last 10 years, more so the last 5 to 6 year elite championship teams that just kind of wipe the floor with most of who they played. You think about 20 Bama, 19 LSU, all that. That's the recent history, and so I think that it doesn't feel like there is that this year. Not sure that there quite was last year with Georgia. I think that was really, really good. I don't know if that Georgia team was quite on that level.
So I think the more I think about the 22 team,
really good.
They were really good. They were really good. When you think about, they had 2 games, Ryan, where they really had to ball out, and that was Missouri and Ohio State. Now Georgia this year, we can't really say that. I mean, they had struggle against South Carolina, if you want to call it that. Obviously against Auburn, they had a real fight against Missouri. Are there other games I'm missing? No.
I mean, I just don't think you could. The cupcake games, it's kind of hard to tell. And Georgia was a different team a couple months ago than it is now.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
mean, think about what was going on at the end. Roderick Robinson out there scoring touchdowns. Makai Muse out there scoring touchdowns. Cash
Roger
Jones
Bauer,
out there scoring touchdowns.
Brock
That was
Bowers,
September.
Brock
Brock
Bowers.
Bowers, yeah, and maybe they'll have Brock Bowers back in a couple of weeks. Um, he's running. Dude's recovering pretty quickly.
Yeah, I don't think.
If there was going to be someone, it was going to be him.
I mean, I think it's all there in front of them. You know, when you look at this Ole Miss, and we'll talk more about Ole Miss as time goes on, but I
Yeah.
think my red flag about Ole Miss is really the against Texas A&M. Maybe it was just that game. I don't know, but like Carson Beck is a I would say noticeably better quarterback than Max Johnson. I think that Georgia as an offensive team is better than Texas A&M. I don't think there's statistically there's no question about that. But that was concerning to me the other day with Ole Miss to me. But with that said, Georgia had to fight their way out of Sanford with a win over Missouri. And I mean, I don't think there's anything to be ashamed of if you're Georgia. It was just a difficult game.
It was a difficult game. I think that I almost watched someone wreck into a tree. I think that people just didn't give Missouri the credit it deserved heading into it.
Yeah.
Really, I mean, I think that all the credits in hindsight after Georgia only won by 9. You know what I mean? I think that's kind of where it's coming from. I think we definitely gave Missouri credit as the week went on a week ago. The defensive line for Missouri played really well. I
Yes.
mean, they gave Georgia a challenge. They didn't beat Georgia in that challenge, in my opinion, but they challenged Georgia in multiple ways. And you saw as the game went on, and as they have over the last couple of years, Georgia's defense gets better as the game goes on against good quarterbacks, and
Yeah, I
that's
mean,
not good for the other team.
is Jackson Dart good enough to beat Georgia?
Well, I think that he's not as good as Brady Cook.
I don't know if he is or not.
I don't know that it's maybe it's close, but I think I would give the nod to Brady Cook.
I mean, for
Now they've
me,
got
the
a legit running
Rebels,
back that their running back's a problem, and I think you're going to
he's
see a
good.
much different defensive front against Ole Miss than we saw against Missouri. That was a very different defense that we saw Georgia run on Saturday compared to the rest of the season. I don't know if we'll see that again this time.
So when you take a look at Ole Miss during SEC play, they've really been I don't know about all over the place. That's maybe not the right way to put it. 3 times during the season, Ryan, they've gone for over 30 points. So that was the LSU game where they scored 55. Everybody seems to be scoring on LSU, to be honest. Vanderbilt and Texas A&M. And then there were 3 times they didn't, which was on the road at Alabama, on the road against Auburn, and then a 7-point win over Arkansas where they sort of saved themselves in that game too. I, I like Georgia in this game. I'm not going to be bashful about it. I think that when you look at just playing this game in if this game were in Oxford, I would still pick Georgia to win. But I'm going to take them against the line too. I just think that Ole
Well, what
Miss.
is the line?
What's that?
What's the line?
Well, thanks for reading Dog Post and signing up for the newsletter, Ryan. It's 11.5. It's not really moved much. Ole Miss scored 73, 37, and 48 out of conference play. And then they scored 10, 55, 27, 28, 33, and 38 in conference play. They have played, I would say, 4 not great teams, which are Arkansas, Auburn, Vanderbilt, and A&M. And they played 2 pretty good teams, which is Bama and LSU. They had markedly different results in those games. Obviously, one was a win, one was a loss. But not just that, but they couldn't score at all against Alabama. They could not score. They couldn't do much of anything.
And
And
that was in Tuscaloosa, correct?
yeah, I think playing on the road is challenging.
It's tough to
And I'm
score on
not
the
talking
road.
about playing at Tulane in front of 30,000 people. I'm talking about when that scene for. That's why this is so critical. On Saturday with the crowd. I mean, if you Quinshon Junkins is not going to get. I mean, that's not going to bother him, the crowd. But it will bother the offensive line, the quarterback. You're going to have to function differently. I mean,
Yeah, we see it. We see it
we s-
every
all the
game.
time,
We see it every time,
all the time. We
and it's gonna
consistent.
happen. I would venture to say it's gonna happen a couple times on Saturday.
Well, it does. Again, Ole Miss is one of the worst disciplined teams in terms of penalties in college football. They're 118th out
Yeah,
of 130. They're averaging 7 penalties a game. Ryan, that's a
yeah,
lot. And you're going to go play in Athens. You're going to get some procedural stuff. It seems to happen. I don't know.
yeah. Well, you always say when you can't hear, you can't hear.
You
I
can't.
think that's the phrase you use. But I think there is an element to that extra, just unbearable noise when you're down in there, and that can
Particularly
happen.
when the momentum's against you.
There is another level, and we've seen it a couple times in Sanford Stadium. I do think that it's possible you see it get close to that, or maybe hit that. And if the crowd is that elite, it really does. It does affect the game, and it totally can affect Ole Miss's offense. I mean, it completely affected Arkansas in 21. I think that's the game it affected it the most in terms of the crowd affecting pre-snap stuff, very specifically. Um, Against Tennessee, it was really a more of a momentum thing than
Well, that's
anything
the
else, in
thing,
my
though.
opinion.
You've
Yeah,
seen. I'm trying to think of where you've gone on the road. South Carolina, but that was such a blowout.
I
Auburn,
have not seen that many elite road environments or outside environments. I would say Tennessee and Auburn are the two
Tennessee
that
in
I would say.
21. Were you there for that?
Yes, yeah, that was
Yeah, I
very
mean,
loud,
when
and I expect it to be better this time around
with the
up there.
Vols,
Yeah, they're gonna. Yeah, I expect
we'll
that to be
see. I
pretty.
mean, like if they lose to Missouri, there's always Tennessee can be a tricky place, but when they get up, they're bearing down on top of you.
Yeah, and I've always said, I think Tennessee's band's really good.
They are.
I remember it being really good, and
They
I
are.
think
They are
that's.
good.
But
There's a lot of. By the way, let me just say this real quick. There's a lot of really good about Tennessee. Like when we go, there's a lot of really good that they
I
do.
don't mind that trip at all.
No,
Yeah,
but it's a tough place to play, man. I mean, like
yeah,
it's a tough
yeah.
place to play. Sanford on Saturday for me was not that tough, but I say that, and they still had a bunch of penalties against them that were procedural.
Yeah.
I think you could
Mhm.
see on Saturday, you could see 5 false starts. You could see, stuff like that because they've only once played in a situation like that this so far, which was at at Alabama. Whew, had a hard time saying that. They had no, and they had at Auburn as well. Auburn, Bama, those are tough places to play. I mean, they lost by 14 to Bama. They won by 7 against Auburn. That was a
Yeah, but that Bama game, that's one of those where the score doesn't tell the complete story. They
all
got
right. Tell me
crushed
the
by
complete
Alabama.
story.
They got crushed. That's
Yeah,
the story.
they did. They
Alabama
couldn't do anything.
slapped them. Alabama slapped them down. So, and at that point, Alabama was not in the rhythm.
No, that was a different time. And see, I think that's what could be lurking around the corner for Ole Miss is like Missouri didn't get Georgia's best shot. They got a really good one, and Georgia got.
Hmm.
I mean, that's probably the best Mizzou's played this year.
That was, to me, I thought Georgia played a pretty average game
Well, but
on
Missouri,
Saturday.
I don't know if Missouri played better against Georgia than they did against LSU. I'm not sure I'd be ready to say that about their offense. Their defense played better, but it's really
Yeah,
LSU's offense is just really dangerous to deal with.
yeah.
So, Alabama gave up 28. But again,
And then
anybody can
And then
score.
Daniels gets hurt too, so
But
it could have
Jay,
been
we've been talking
more.
about this with Jay Daniels for a long time. I mean, I think I told you sometime earlier in the year we were watching. This guy's just jumping into the air. I'm like, this guy's going to get killed. And now that was targeting. I don't know how people
Yeah,
can't see that was targeting. I mean, he hit him with his helmet, forcible up to the chin, drove him into the ground, which is not targeting, I don't think. But it's a 15-yard penalty regardless. I thought it was targeting, but whatever. But Jaden Daniels, I mean, like at some point, you put your body on the line that much, you're gonna suffer.
yeah.
So
It's the way he it just looks drastic every time he got tackled.
he's not a big person,
Yeah,
and when
it's
like
yeah.
Nazir Stackhouse is ragdolling you,
When Nazir Stackhouse is
I mean
sprinting
it's
at you. 'Cause
problematic. But I think too. If Georgia is up and hyped and all this stuff, I think it'd be very hard for almost anybody to come in there and win a game against them. But this is going to be much more hyped than the Missouri game because it's going to be game day, because it's at night, because it's not Missouri, because it's a top 10 showdown, because of all the other things. And they don't need much. This program doesn't need much to get going, Ryan. And you know, they enjoy this. They seem to really enjoy this. They like the spotlight.
I think they do like the spotlight. I think you can see that with individual players for sure. I don't mean that they're not about the team, but um, they do like bigger moments. We see the difference in the play against the bad teams and the good teams. You can see the energy level, the effort level. Like, look, we're calling them out in a sense. The effort level is higher against better teams, and I don't know if that's right or wrong. That's up for the coaching staff to decide. But they get up and play harder for the bigger games. They do. And today Kirby and both I think it was Truss and Tyke Smith, yeah, that we talked to today. They don't seem to care about the night game thing. Just kind of as long as it's not noon, they don't really worry about how good the crowd's going to be.
Yeah, noon. And look, Kirby has got enough um, capital with this fan base that he can ask them. You can't ask them to do it every week, but they
No.
really need the fan base to be there and be live. Ole Miss has won in Athens before. I've been there for it. I think the last time they did though was 1996. So it's been some time, and part of that is because they don't play every year like they did. And Mike Boba had a rough game that night. That day. Let me tell you. But Ole Miss, you don't see this a lot. Like, this is not every day that they go to Georgia. They're playing the number one team in the country, and they're going to have to be disciplined and all that stuff too. The numbers indicate that they're not super disciplined. The recent past dictates that Lane's teams don't do so hot in November. Well, we're just going to see. We're going to see Saturday night. If Georgia plays its best game, there's no way Ole Miss beats them. If they turn it over
Yeah.
and do all, if they turn,
Okay.
go ahead.
Well, timeout, timeout. If Georgia plays its best game, does anyone beat them?
See, I don't think so. I
It
don't think
depends
so.
on if the other team plays its best game as well.
Well, Georgia's best game is better than everybody's best game that I've seen this year. I think the question is what about Michigan? We just don't have real data on them. So
We
that's
will. We will in a few days. We'll have
yeah,
some
we will. And I
significant
think,
data in a few days.
I think they should beat Penn State. They should handle Penn State. If they're as good as we think they are, they should handle them. And Georgia should handle Ole Miss too. Thanks for watching. Make sure you're signing up for the newsletter. We'll see you on the website.